We just came off of a quarter that set a record, but our dialogue with our clients continues to be very strong. Clearly, there's a lot of response from the fact that we now have an administration and President Trump and his team that is not an adversary to business. I mean, again, we lived in a period of 8 years where there was sub 2% growth in our economy. I felt a lot of that had to do with the fact that Washington sat there almost in an adversarial position, or really an adversarial position, not as a partner to business people that want to invest, deploy capital, and grow and create jobs. And we're there now.
The one sort of interesting aspect of the Trump administration in terms of regulation, listen, they pulled off a lot of the sort of heavy-duty, boot-on-the-neck sort of stuff, but their antitrust division is recently threw a curveball, right? AT&T, Time Warner, they're opposing that. Everybody thought that type of deal would go through. Does that create a sort of degree of uncertainty with deal making if you don't allow a deal like that to go through, which is a vertical merger, correct? I got this right? Yeah, a vertical merger, two different businesses, that it might quell other types of mergers?
Well, certainly there's a dose of uncertainty that's been injected by this administration through its enforcement mechanisms, and we'll see how all that works out. But I do think there is some question about government risk, and we've certainly seen that with some of our clients as well as some of the actions that aren't necessarily, I think, consistent with what I would like to see our government be about in terms of applying the law rather than trying to make rules which in effect would make us a country of rules, not laws. So I do think there's some uncertainty about that, but I don't think necessarily that that's overwhelming versus the really strong sense of growth and optimism. That
lower corporate taxes, generally less regulation. Let me ask you this, because you and I know a little bit about your philosophy as a congressman. We would be considered, conservatives, mainstream conservatives, about 3 years ago. Now, someone like you and I, who were for lower taxes and free trade and some other things, we're not really that at home in the conservative movement.
Right.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, we have to look and see. Anytime a party has its nominee and its candidate win the election, that party becomes the president's party. It's Donald Trump's party, and it's interesting to watch how our president works. I mean, he did sell himself as a negotiator. He goes out there, he takes an unbelievably strong position on some things that can raise some eyebrows, and it's about negotiating. And I think we've seen that play out pretty consistently, if there's anything consistent about what's going on right now. And so a lot of the times the party and the players in the party and on Capitol Hill will try and follow his lead. But you can't really follow his lead in terms of trying to say, well, this position is necessarily going to stick, because it's all about negotiating. So I come back to the fact that I still think that the Republican Party is a limited government, free market, conservative party that believes in free trade, believes in the kinds of things that you and I believe, that our economy and the business world is predicated on risk-taking, and that we ought to be shaping the environment to do that, because that's how we can increase the standard of living and the hope for everybody.
Midterms are coming up. What do you think? Republicans hold the House?
Listen, I mean, we know historically, the party in the White House loses seats in an off-year election. I think the headwinds are strong. If you see what's been going on in some of the special elections in my state of Virginia, when we had off-year statewide elections, my party didn't do so well. So I do think there's some headwinds, and the question is going to be: are they going to be strong enough come election time that it will cause a flip in the House? I'm not so sure that happens.